Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Retro Recall. I hope you're doing awesome. It's 3 in the morning. You're lined up at the local Best Buy. It's 1998, and you want Windows 98. You're there. You're so excited. You bring this home. You install it on your computer. You can do all your DOS gaming through real mode. You can use the operating system and use all the benefits and features that you were using on Windows 95. Life is grand. Fast forward to February of 2000, you hear about this newfangled type operating system called Windows 2000. You're going, I don't know about this. You don't line up just as quickly to jump to it because you're hearing all about this Windows 2000 being meant for Windows NT technology or built on Windows NT technology meant for the business market. So you're kind of hemming and hawing at the time and you're going, I think I'm going to hold off for now. All of a sudden, come September of 2000, bam, Windows Millennium comes out. You're so excited. You're going, oh my goodness, this is the true successor to Windows 98. This is exactly what I want. I'm going to be able to do everything I can. So I line up again, and I go home, and I bring this home, and I'm going, oh my goodness, I'm getting crashes. I'm getting blue screens. Hardware is having all these compatibility problems. And what do you mean I can't shut down in DOS mode? That's what I wanted. Anyway, so let's go back to the operating systems here. And so when you think about it, you went through that journey. This was the emotional journey Microsoft was putting you through at the time to get you to upgrade to different versions of Windows. And in hindsight, we're talking 23 years later for these versions, and even more so, of course, for 25 years for Windows 98, that you're going, okay, you know what? We are much more well educated as to what happened. There was lots of drivers fixes, several service packs that were released, and all of these things were happening. And again, that's why I continue to refer to this era of computing as the Wild West of computing, because any single release was very, very well marketed. Lots of excitement around all of it, not knowing exactly what you're going to get. And then you are living in that era with all of the different quirks and the problems and all the different upgrades they were putting out and all the different saving face at the time, if you will. So today's video, what we're going to do is focus on Windows 2000, getting it installed and seeing what type of operating system it was. So let's get right to it. Welcome back, and two beautiful sites on the bench. I know there's been a lot of fuss around Windows Millennium Edition. I say this again, I did an installation video on this already on the Retro Recall right there. If you haven't seen it already, please take a look. I did not have problems with this operating system, even though I know several individuals did. But again, I think I had the latest drivers and latest hardware at the time, so running it was not a problem. But I was an earlier adopter of Windows 2000 Professional, and I actually ran into quite a bit of problems with this operating system, mainly because I didn't know the difference at the time when I was installing the software. I was one of those users coming from Windows 98, where I was going and installing Windows 2000 first, because this did come out first before Windows Millennium Edition did. And so even though it was warning me on the back of the box, hey, don't be doing that. This is for business. Windows 2000 is for business, and Windows Millennium Edition is for home use. And, they were advertising that this was coming out, that this was on its way out and being released. And it was only a few months in between February and September, between the release of 2000 and the release of Millennium Edition. And so we're going to focus on the back of the box on this today before we go to a computer. So I'm going to put away the Windows Millennium Edition box. So here we are. We have the reliable operating system for business desktops and laptops. So it's building on the reliability and security of Windows NT and integrating the use of Windows 98. Microsoft Windows 2000 Professional offers a simple but powerful foundation for businesses of all sizes. So they're focusing on businesses here, but Windows NT at the time had a very good reputation. Very reliable, great networking, a lot of security, and they were really building on that, and ultimately led to Windows XP being built on NT and then moving forward, where we completely scrapped the other foundational operating system. So when we go through this, it says with advanced features for mobile computing, it helps you work more effectively in or out of the office. So they're still saying that you have the ease of use of Windows 98, but you can use it as a business professional operating system. Now, as I mentioned, I had this operating system installed, ran into a lot of problems, and then later in life, when they started having the updates and service packs, I actually started to be able to use this operating system for my games, and I was quite happy with it. Plus, it was much more stable at the time than some of the operating systems out there. I mean, obviously, you had Windows 98, Windows Millennium still around. So at the time, after all the different operating system upgrades were coming out, and you still have Windows 98, people were downgrading back to Windows 98. People were changing their operating system if they jumped into this too early into Windows Millennium and running into their own problems. But again, it was just exciting back in the time. And I personally had used this quite a bit prior to jumping into Windows Millennium Edition. And as I mentioned earlier, I ran into a lot of problems with this, not so much Windows Millennium, when a lot of users reported the opposite, even though this was touted as being the more reliable operating system. So it says right here, the most reliable and secure Windows. So improved stability, provides robust system architecture designed to keep your business up and running. Self-healing applications enable automatic monitoring and prevention of application problems for improved stability and faster recovery. Enhanced security protects your information and applications, and advanced troubleshooting helps you resolve problems quickly. So a lot of great things. I'm sitting in a store now and I'm reading the back of this, and I'm even going back into Windows Millennium. I picked that up and it even tells you, hey, what Windows is right for you? Like, home is for Windows Millennium. So you're a home user, you're going, oh, well, I'm seeing both of these side by side on the shelf. I'm a little confused because Millennium and 2000, it's Millennium, and what do I get? And that's why they were really focusing on letting users know, hey, go to Windows 2000 Professional if you're for business. Well, I mean, again, I didn't listen to them much. I just decided to do what I wanted to do, and I got this instead anyway. And this is a sealed copy of course, this is not my original. This is one that was donated to the channel. So far, so good. It's still staying in the shrink wrap. Okay, so easier to use and manage. So the ease of Windows 98, so that was very critical at the time. Internet integration with built-in browser software. So they were saying, hey, I have built-in browser already installed. You don't need to go there. And of course, that's a different tangent for another day. Easy setup, provides simple wizards for step-by-step setup. We're going to see that here in a minute. Network integration allows sharing of documents, printers across your entire network, and multi-language support. So far, so good. Like, why wouldn't I go with this? So the best solution for mobile computing. So new hardware options, plug and play, efficient power management, synchronization manager, and easy remote networking. So remote access. So you must accept, the legal stuff. It's all good. So system requirements. So you need 133 megahertz processor, 64 megs of RAM, 2 gigs of hard drive space, CD-ROM or DVD-ROM drive, VGA or higher resolution. Again, being a business PC, it didn't require much to do that. And then some internet functionality may require internet access, et cetera, et cetera. So it says actual system requirements may vary based on your configuration. So you'd have to go back and double check to make sure. And then there was a website here that you could allow you to go in and see what particular applications were 2000 ready. So you go in and double check that. And I remember the ads at the time really saying, hey, jump in and wait for a different operating system for when it comes time. And they were really saying, if you're a home user, jump here. Okay, so yeah, just a beautiful, I love their marketing of these boxes. There were different colors. This is the upgrade of it, edition, which was the white and more white box, but there was a blue box as well, I believe it was, for the full copy. Okay, enough of that. So again, this is saying, hey, if you're a user of Windows 95, 98, Windows NT, Workstation 3.5, 1, or 4, it will upgrade for you from all whatever you're using to Windows 2000. I'll be honest with you, I tended to run into more problems upgrading the operating systems versus doing fresh installations and proving that you had a previous license. Okay, what we're going to do is remove this, and we're going to get the bench all set up with a computer and start going through the installation process of Windows 2000 Professional. And welcome back to the workbench here. And I'm so excited to have this computer back on the bench. Our Dell Dimension XPS B933. This is our Pentium 3 system running at 933 megahertz with 512 megs of RAM, running on spinning Rust. And it's working. If you've seen my last video, the spinning rust actually failed, but that's good times. You haven't seen that video, see that as well. So here we are. We're going to log in here. So this is running Windows 98. The sound never gets old. So yeah, I'm sitting here with Windows 98 operating system, and picture us back in the day. It's 2000. We have our 98 second edition working. Everything's working just fine. I can go to start, shut down. I have DOS mode I can run into. I know my games work. All my drivers are compatible. Why would I change? Well, there's so much marketing out there right now that I actually want to go ahead and upgrade to Windows 2000. And, I've had some glitches and some blue screens going on lately. So I figured, you know what? They keep on telling me how much more reliable that operating system is. And I really want to try it out. So as I mentioned earlier, there's a couple different ways you can install Windows 2000. So you can either choose to do an upgrade to the operating system. So that means everything stays the way it is here. You pop your disk in and it prompts you with this prompt here, which I'll read through in a moment. The alternative is you can restart the computer and install from scratch. For the record, I had far less issues when I just installed it from scratch versus doing an upgrade, because all you're doing is upgrading the operating system and upgrading any sort of issues you may have had at the time versus starting from scratch, installing all the drivers from scratch and getting everything reinstalled. That was my experience. This CD-ROM contains a newer version of Windows than the one you're using. Would you like to upgrade to Windows 2000? We're going to hit no for now because, again, I'm saying no because we're going to do it the different way. Now, if you don't know how to do the other way by restarting the computer and booting off the CD and running fresh, then a lot of users would do that with this disk. Okay, I'm going to restart right now and shut down the computer, restart, and we should be able to boot from that disk right there. Here we are. Press any key to boot from CD. We'll hit enter. Now setup is inspecting our hardware configuration. So anybody who's installed a lot of Windows XP and a lot of different older operating systems will see that they had kept this sort of same interface when you're starting to do the very first installation, utilizing the from scratch method versus actually installing it using the operating system. Say if Windows 98 was running, you can install it this way. So right now the operating system is copying all the necessary files required to start the installation. Okay, so welcome to Setup. This portion of Setup program prepares Microsoft Windows 2000 to run on your computer. Press Enter or to repair a version of Windows 2000. So you could use the same CD to do a repair installation of the operating system, or let's just quit and go back. So this is one of your last chances. Your operating system is still installed on here. You haven't done anything yet, but hey, we're going to live dangerously. We're going to hit Enter. Set up Windows now on the selected partition, hit enter to create a new partition or delete. We're going to delete the partition that's there right now, and we're going to create a new partition. So hit L to delete. Okay, there's our unpartitioned space, and we're going to set up on the unpartitioned space. We'll hit enter. The reason I'm saying that is because if you noticed, it was set up as FAT32. FAT32 is for the Windows 98 operating system. This particular operating system requires the NTFS file system for it to install. So we'll hit enter on here, and there we are. So right now what it's doing is formatting the disk. So we have an 80 gig drive that's installed in this computer, and so it's formatting the disk right now and going to go through that process. So here we go. Okay, we've 100% formatted the disk in real time. That was about a half hour. I forgot how long it took to format a hard drive right from scratch, not using the quick method. Okay, so it says, please wait while setup copies files, the Windows 2000 installation folders. This may take several minutes to complete. So if you recognize this, even the Windows XP days, very similar interface for installing the operating system. So they remain pretty consistent through these processes. Okay, that's all done, and it says, please wait while setup initializes your Windows 2000 setup. So hit enter just so it will restart. And just warned you because otherwise you go back into the same setup loop, and we don't want to do that. So you don't want to touch the key this time or to boot from CD because it already is ready to start going. Here we are, starting Windows. Windows 2000 Professional, built on NT technology. I always love that splash screen. And it would have loaded the basic drivers to get us to this stage. I mean, we don't have a very fancy video card that's inside this computer, if you remember. I think it's the 4 megabyte Trident, but again, it would have just loaded basic VGA drivers for this installation. So our mouse works just fine, keyboard's working just fine. It's doing a bunch of stuff in the background there. Welcome to the Windows 2000 Setup Wizard. This wizard installs Windows 2000 Professional on your computer. This wizard needs to gather some information about you and your computer. Okay, so it's installing devices. Setup is detecting and installing devices on your computer. Please wait while Setup detects and installs devices such as your keyboard and mouse. This may take several minutes. During this time, your screen may flicker for a few seconds. And this is the similar thing that we had for, when Windows 98, the drums were going in the corner, trying to install the hardware. Same thing with this. It's going through and scanning all the hardware in your computer, and it will use whatever driver database that it has to be able to install this. Now, for transparency, I am utilizing the Service Pack 4 image of this operating system. So it will have all the latest driver packs installed as part of this. And so it just saves some hassle when you're going to have to install some drivers later. At the time, though, if you're thinking back to Windows 2000 when it first came out, you don't have any service packs. You'd have the original operating system. So you'd have to rely on the manufacturer drivers that you had had at the time. Okay, so it says regional settings. I mean, this is pretty straightforward for many of the operating systems, just to choose your keyboard and your layout and your language. And then we're going to put in the retro recall as being registered to, and I'm going to put in the CD key here. Okay, the CD key is all put in, and we're just going to leave the password as blank for now, and hit next. And then so our date and time, which is very close to being correct, and we'll change it to our Atlantic time zone. That's where I'm hiding out these days. And we'll hit next. Please wait while Windows installs networking components. And this is pretty general setup as you go through. I mean, anybody from all walks of life can certainly attempt this and go through this. Even back in the day, they tried to do what they could to make it as easy as possible to install these sort of operating systems because they wanted user adoption. They wanted people going in, installing their operating systems on their computers the best way they knew how, and be able to walk through. Now, obviously, inside the box, there's a manual to help you walk through all this as well. If you're a really novice user, you could go and use the upgrade version instead versus what I'm doing right now, which is installing it from scratch. So it says here, choose whether to use typical or custom settings. We're just going to use typical settings for the networking, and no, the computer is not on a network, or make the computer member the following domain. We'll say no for now for network. And right now it's installing the components, may take several minutes, so it's copying files. So it's basically installing the components of the actual operating system. This should be fairly quick just because it is a faster computer, lots of memory. And this operating system, according to the box, accepts up to 4 gigabytes of RAM installed, which is quite hefty and quite nice. Okay, now it says, please wait while setup installs start menu items, registered components, save settings, and removes any temporary files used. Fairly straightforward. I mean, it looks pretty nice. I mean, the the coloring they use and the interface and all that, but I mean, it's fairly intuitive when it's going to install. It's not prompting you with anything else. It doesn't really require you to answer. I guess it's trying to, not intimidate the end user from installing. When you had Windows 98, it would come up and say better, faster, more reliable operating system and play your games. And Windows Millennium was, multimedia, and you'd have all these little splash windows on the screen where this is very basic. Again, this was designed for business operating environments, fairly basic as you install this. And, the server environments as well that they mentioned would have had a similar install. I mean, Windows 2000 Server, having multiple computers in your network and doing different applications of the operating system. And I do remember using Server 2000 as well back in the day, and it was quite reliable. We'll go through the rest of this installation here. Okay, completing the Windows 2000 Setup Wizard. You have successfully completed Windows 2000 Setup. If there's a CD in your drive, remove it, then restart to your computer, click Finish. Windows 2000 Professional, built on NT technology. There's our splash screen we saw earlier during the installation, and this time we should be popping into either the desktop or continuing on with the installation. Wow, it really adjusted that resolution for us. So I'm wondering if the Service Pack 4 contained all the drivers that we needed. Welcome to the Network Identification Wizard. And I'm going to zoom in here a little bit, guys, because of the just because we do not have the ability yet to change the resolution. So the wizard helps you connect your computer to a network. Hit next. So it says Windows always assumes the following users logged onto the computer. So the retro recall, that's totally fine. Or we can say, hey, users must enter a username and password. We're going to choose that. You have successfully completed the network identification wizard. Hit next or finish. So there we are. We have administrator, and I mean that default password is just enter, or the retro recall. And there's our sound. So it seems that it installed the video and the sound, no problem. I'm going to go into properties real quickly here just to adjust our settings to a resolution that everybody can see on screen. There we are, 800 by 600. Yes. We'll hit yes, it's going to be configured and we're okay with that. There we go, a little easier for everyone to see. Okay, so we have our Windows 2000 Professional getting started. We have registered now, which we're not going to do right now. Discover Windows, so it says Windows 2000 Professional is easier to use, easier to manage, more compatible, and more powerful. Ooh, power. The Discover Windows 2000 Professional tour highlights all the newest features, our newest and coolest features, and then connect to the internet. Okay, we're going to click on Discover Windows and see what the tour is all about. Ooh, fancy.
No matter where you are working, your computer will be easier to use and easier to manage because Microsoft Windows 2000 Professional is more compatible and more powerful than any workstation you've used before. It's just easier now to get things done.
It's just easier now to get things done. All right, is it easier to use? Let's click on that. So Microsoft
Windows 2000 Professional makes it easier to work with files, find information, personalize your computing environment, work on the web, and work remotely. Windows 2000 Professional makes it easier to set up, easier to administer, and easier to support your workstation.
I like how it tells you about this, but doesn't actually prove it out.
Windows 2000 Professional is more compatible with different types of networks, with a wide array of legacy hardware and software, and offers better driver support. It also supports new generation hardware and multimedia technologies. Windows 2000 Professional provides industrial-strength reliability, the highest level of security, and powerful performance for all your computing needs.
Well, thank you, Windows 2000. Thank you, Microsoft. Okay, so there's our tour, and then we're going to close that for now and take a look at the operating system. So before I go any further, I'm just going to go into my computer under Properties and check everything out here. So we are showing that's Windows 2000 Service Pack 4, so that makes a lot of difference with our experience because I have a strong feeling it's installed most of the drivers for us. So then our retro recall registered to computer is what it's detecting it as, but it's a Pentium 3. And then we have our 512 megabytes of RAM installed. Network identification, so we have the work group, it's just part of it. I didn't change the computer name. I can go in here and do all that later, but I don't have anything on the network right now. Under hardware, we have the device manager. Let's see what, look at that. Look at that. Isn't that awesome? I mean, I have Snappy Driver at the ready to install just in case, but I think we are good to go. Let's go through this. So under our disk drives, we have our Western Digital 80 gigabyte hard drive. Display adapters is installed no problem, which is a Trident Video Accelerator 3D Image 985. Our CD-ROM drive is just our Light-On 48-speed max drive. Then we have our controllers. And under our monitors, just your standard plug-and-play monitor, network adapters. We do have our 3COM Etherlink XL 10100 NIC installed there, just in case. For sound, we do have the Sound Blaster Live drivers installed, so I did put that as part of our previous restoration build, and of course our USB drivers. So, you know, a lot has to be said about driver compatibility in the later years. If I installed the original version of this, or even the Service Pack 1 or 2, it may not have installed all those drivers at first glance. But I mean, I'm showing you an example of a completely easy installation. As I mentioned, I was ready to utilize the snappy driver installer to be able to copy the drivers over, get it to do install everything. And by the way, to everyone who recommended this, highly recommend Snappy Driver Installer. Works great. But again, I don't need to do that. It seems that it is all installed without any issues, which is wonderful. And I mean, we could really see that as we turned the computer on. We heard the startup sound, and we could see the display resolution was pretty good. Okay, so picturing back, I mean, you're running Windows, you're running Windows 98. You've just gone into Windows 2000, and there we are. We don't have the MS-DOS mode, to be able to shut down MS-DOS. Even Windows Millennium Edition doesn't have that. And, that was one of the complaints about not being able to play, go into, load this up or run Microsoft DOS games as part of your experience. Now, you could use boot disks if you wanted to still use that, pop a boot disk in there, like a Windows 98 boot disk or something configured for your actual DOS games. You could do that. And then we also had I believe it was under your system tools, or no, here it is, your command prompt. So you did have a command prompt. You could run some software games that way. I didn't have any problem, not for my games. I wasn't a heavy DOS gamer at the time. So I did have some Windows versions of games, like based on Windows using the Direct 3D and other technologies. And I didn't have any problem with that. Now, one thing I want to do is go into Control Panel here under Add and Remove Programs, and we're going to take a look at the Windows components, because I don't think it installed all of the components. No, because it didn't give me the option to customize it. So you can see that there's a few different components we can install here. I mean, we have the IIS, and again, this was built for business. So management and monitoring tools of your network, so network performance, messaging queuing services, your networking services, your other network file printer sharing services, Outlook Express installed and script debugger, and of course Windows Media Player. So again, this is one of those operating systems that allowed you to have, it was built for business, it was robust, and it took a lot of that bloatware away to have a really solid operating system. And under accessories, we do have our accessibility. We have communications, so you did different applications and tools. Still installed net meetings, so you could actually have your video conferencing. This is way before, I'd say way before, but we were really knocking on the door of getting into what we now know with webcams and things like that. Under entertainment, we have our CD player, sound recorder, volume control, and Windows Media Player. All of this was installed as part of Windows 98 at the time, and of course Windows Millennium augmented the operating system in terms of multimedia. Now, again, operating system, business, right? So you still utilize some of these tools. Under games, we still have our Freeseller, Minesweeper, our Pinball, and our Solitaire. So all of that was part of the operating system as well. System tools, pretty straightforward to go in and go and configure anything that you actually wanted to be able to use. And this system is quite quick. I mean, it's running very, very snappy. Obviously, the hardware is at the top end of what the operating system would require back then. And so you'd have all these things. And like I said, I installed games quite a bit on this computer in this operating system, and I didn't have any problem. And I had lots of productivity software that I was running at the time. You can see that the system is running pretty well, and I'm not having any issues. Obviously, I'm not running a whole lot right now, but it gave you all the different options to be able to run everything that you needed on this operating system. But I think, overall, I really enjoyed Windows 2000. I thought it was a really great operating system. We went through the installation today just to get up and running. And yeah, I'm just really, really happy that this is installed. If you like today's video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel out. Hit the notification button, change it to all. You'll be notified of new content such as this. Leave a comment down below. Did you run Windows 2000 Professional in your environments? Did you use it in your everyday computing? What sort of stories do you have that you can comment down below and let me know? I love all the interaction on the channel, and I respond to absolutely every comment. Always making new content. Thank you so much for your support. We'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.